Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my on second thought on Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. This is also going to be a spoiler-filled review, so in case you haven't seen it yet and you don't want anything spoiled, you should click away now, go watch it, and all of your free time now, go watch it, come back, and we'll talk about it then. So in case you don't know, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince is the 6th installment in the Harry Potter franchise, with David Yates returning as director, Harry, Ron, and Hermione all being reprised by Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson. Also, I want to point out that Steve Kloves returns to write the screenplay, which he's written all of the other ones except for the 5th one for some reason, which I pointed out had horrible pacing, horrible dialogue, all of that bad, just horrible, and he returns and fixes a lot of those problems. This one, unlike the other one, is not a horrible mess. It's okay in every way. It's just okay, which is unfortunate to me because the book was my favorite book in the franchise, and I felt like this movie coming out of it was just another Harry Potter movie. It didn't have any sort of memorable feel to it, like I was going to hold on to this one forever. It just felt like it was just another Harry Potter movie that I may or may not watch later, and a big part of that is just the directing. I can't really get over it. It's not good. And so even though there is this humor that they've added, it's not helping entirely because the humor is awkward humor. So it's like they stretch out awkward pauses and they have just deadpan deliveries, which is supposed to be humorous and usually is, but when you're already awkwardly timed as it is and there's already long pauses of deadpan acting, the humor doesn't stand out as much because you're just doing what you would normally do anyway under this director. So it's hard to be funny when you just already don't know what's going on and you don't know if you're trying to be funny or not. And there's this scene that's a perfect example of just my utter confusion in the moment. You've got this character Slughorn. He's the new potions teacher, and he has this little party that he'll throw for his favorite students or whatever, people he'll think that will be prestigious, so he wants to get buddy-buddy with them, rub shoulders with them. So Harry, of course, is there because he's his prize student, and then this girl shows up, and Harry abruptly stands up, which, you know, that's the etiquette. When a lady enters, you're supposed to stand, but nobody really reacts, nobody else stands up, and you can tell that he seems to be awkward with it, but I don't know if it was supposed to be any more awkward than anything else, because everything else in this movie felt that awkward too. I don't entirely know how to react to these things that you're showing me because you're already confusing me the majority of the time. Like, some of the better humor in this movie is Harry drinks this potion of luck. It's Felix Felicis. It's supposed to make you lucky so that everything you do will go right for you, which is, you know, an OP potion that, of course, never gets brought up again because it's like the time turner. Why would you make something so powerful that you can't use it again? It's silly, but J.K. Rowling, you know how I feel about her. She's not good. But so anyway, avoiding that, Harry takes this and he almost starts acting drunk. And it's like he's just like wistful and kind of strange, but it's like he's already been acting drunk since the last movie, and for the remainder of the movies, Harry or Daniel Radcliffe acts drunk because he was. And it's just funny because it's like, I'm laughing, but I've already been laughing kind of at your performance. So when you start talking and you've got Hagrid and Slughorn and Harry all talking solemnly, and you've got them saying, oh, life, it's gone like that. Just before you know it, poof, and then poof, and then Harry, path. And you're like, are you trying to be funny? I think you're trying to be funny, but I genuinely can't tell. And then, you know, he starts talking like, and the pincers, pss, 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 and you're like, I think you're being funny. I think. But I also wouldn't be surprised if just Daniel Radcliffe just did that because he was too drunk to know that he shouldn't have been doing that at that moment. So I'm like, I'm not entirely sure. There's a difference. There is a difference between laughing with something and laughing at something. And this whole movie is an awkward medium where I'm like, I'm not sure which I'm doing here. Am I laughing at it or with it? I can't tell how much of this awkwardness is on purpose and how much of it's just an accident because it's directed and acted poorly. I can't tell. And like I said, it's a shame because I love this plot. This was my favorite book in the franchise, and at the time I read it, my favorite book, period. And I saw the movie and just went, yeah, that was fine. And it really just comes down to this awful, awful directing. Ugh. And yes, like I said, they do try to infuse this comedy into it, which helps a lot. There's a lot of this kid-friendly moments that are happening, like funny teen moments, like teen romance stuff going on. Ron's love triangle situation and Harry's love triangle situation, all this awkwardness. It's funny as lighthearted, and that's cool and good and all, but this franchise had been progressively getting darker as it went, and it was just weird that this one was definitely darker in its themes, but it took moments for levity that seemed unbalanced. And this whole movie, that's a good word for it. It's just unbalanced. There's cool moments in there, like Dumbledore's death was fairly well done. The leading up to it's awkward, but the actual death of him then falling out of the tower in slow motion, that was cool, that was well done. But it just is not consistent at all, and it's frustrating because I don't know what to make of it when I'm watching it. And it's like at the pinnacle of this awkwardness where I'm like, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be awkward or not, is Harry and Ginny have this budding romance, which made so much more goddamn sense in the books. In the movies, it feels like it came out of nowhere and went nowhere. But anyway, they run into each other on the middle of the stairs, and they're just standing there like, you know, like they're taking those old-timey pictures where you had to get like your neck braced and you're like tied to the thing, and you're like, hey, just take the picture. This is how the acting is. So they're standing there like this. Hey. And Ginny's like, hey, your shoe's untied. And he goes like, huh? And doesn't do anything. He just stares at it. And then she goes to get his shoelace. And then he feigns like he's going to get his shoelace because she went. So he has to look like he at least tried to get it. And then stops because she's getting it. And she ties his shoe. And it's just so uncomfortable. It's so weird and it's so awkward. Like, that might be the worst scene in the entire franchise. I don't know, but it might be. Oh, it makes me uncomfortable just talking about it because it's so weird. And I don't understand. Was that supposed to be funny? Was that supposed to be awkward? Or was that just awkward? Because the rest of the movie is so awkward, I can't tell when you're doing it on purpose or not. So it doesn't stand out to me as quirky or weird or whatever. Like, okay, let's just give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it was awkward on purpose. What was the point of that then? What were you trying to convey? That they were awkward? I guess. That they're teens that like each other and don't know how to act in front of each other? I guess that's what they were going for. But that was never an emotion conveyed in the books. It was never a thing in the books that Harry and Ginny liked each other so much that they just didn't know how to act in front of each other. That was never a thing. That was never remotely a thing. So if that's what you're going for, I don't get it. And I don't understand why you're doing that. And so I assume that it has to not be on purpose. But it's so bad that it feels like it's on purpose. And that's where I'm genuinely confused. I don't like it. I don't get it. It's just weird. But then there are some good moments of humor in this, where it's like you've got the scene where Harry and Ron both show up to class, and then they don't have their books, so they have to get the spare books from the cupboard, and there's one really nice one, and then there's one really gross one, so they fight for it and grab it, and that was funny. It was amusing. It was slightly out of nowhere as well, though. It was slightly out of character, and it's like, at what point is Ron out-muscling Harry for something? It just seems like out of character, out of pocket a bit, where it just doesn't really make sense. But I mean, it felt like a typical teen guy thing to do, so you can like let it go. But you've never seen anything like this in their relationship up until this point. So yeah, it was funny. There was a moment of levity that worked. But if you put it in context of everything else, it doesn't fit in. It just seems out of place. So even when the comedy does work in this movie, it's still not making sense. It's certainly not as bad as the fifth one. This one actually has moments that redeem it. I think it has actually more good moments in it than bad, whereas the other one definitely does not. It really does not. This one actually does. It's got some character chemistry. It's got some moments that I enjoy. I enjoy the actor that plays Slughorn. I enjoy a lot of the returning actors, but it does feel Oh, it does feel like certain people are phoning it in at this point. Like, I've already established that Daniel Radcliffe was phoning it in completely, but I'm talking even some of the adults feel like they were phoning it in. I felt like Dumbledore was phoned in a little bit. I felt like Snape was phoned in this one, which I love Alan Rickman. He's a great actor, but he really just didn't feel interested at this point, and it really felt like a lot of these actors were just done with this franchise and wanted it to be over. And I can relate, I can understand why you would think that and why you would feel that way, but we're coming up to, like, you know, the crescendo, the climax of this story. You gotta give it your all, and I'll give them credit. I felt like the actors cared more in the next two. So I feel like they actually did care more about that. But it really felt like the fifth one and the sixth one were bridge movies where they're like, all right, we need to get to the end. We just need to get to the end. We need to get there as soon as possible. And these movies felt like they were rushed. They felt like they were disingenuine. They didn't feel passionate at all. Like, that's why I love the third one so much, was it felt like a genuine passion project. You know, Chris Columbus ones felt kind of like studio films, and the fourth one you could argue felt like a studio film as well. But the Alfonso Cuarón, really, it felt like a passion project. Like, he wanted to make this movie, and he wanted to make it really good and different and unique. This one, these four, done by David Yates, don't necessarily feel exactly like a studio film. Like, it doesn't feel like a film by committee necessarily, but feels like it was the project of somebody who wasn't totally invested and didn't definitely totally know what they were doing. A big example of that to me is Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, where the first one, it felt fine. It was, you know, a typical superhero movie done well. Dark Knight was a passion project where he didn't necessarily start out that passionate about it, but I think he gravitated towards the movie and the project after he saw how passionate Heath Ledger was for it, and it just kind of snowballed and became this passion project that was so good. And then The Dark Knight Rises was a movie that you could tell the director didn't care about, and that's how these movies feel. So it's weird that this director feels like he doesn't care, because it's all he's got going for him, so he should care. But maybe it's just the fact that he's just not a good director. So maybe he does care, he just doesn't show emotion, which, like I said, it goes back to what I said in the other one, where he didn't allow laughing on the set. That's the worst decision you could possibly make. And it really felt like a lot of these kid actors at this point were being told, all right, it's time to be adults now. To them and those involved, being an adult actor meant you can't have fun anymore. And these movies show that directly on their face, that these movies are no fun anymore at all. And that's the biggest difference between the first four movies and the last four movies, is it felt like fun was not allowed on the set at all, and it felt like fun wasn't really allowed in the movies either. It's not a bad movie, I don't want to say that. It's kind of forgettable, honestly, and it's just not nearly as good as it could have been. So that's what I think, but let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and of course don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks guys, bye.